Hi guys, EG here. Today I'm going to be talking about a fairly broad but really useful topic with linguistics, sociolinguistics. Sociolinguistics primarily examines language variety within different societies. This can include different dialects, pronunciation of various phonemes or words, the use of regional slang or slang that's associated with a certain socioeconomic class, speed of speech production, and etc. For example, in the 1960s, a linguist by the name of William Labov went to a bunch of New York department stores and he examined the difference of the phoneme R in the pronunciation of fourth floor. So you might get something, and be forewarned, I'm not going to say this properly, fourth floor or fourth floor, depending on the department store. So that's one example of sociolinguistics. Another example of sociolinguistics would be the use of African American English, or AAE, sometimes known as AVE, African American Vernacular English. This is a proper dialect of standard American English and is used in a bunch of different settings to depict character or background. You might notice that some of the Disney movies use African American English as a character statement. The crows in Dumbo or the hyenas in the cartoon version of The Lion King, for example. So sociolinguistics examines differences in geography. This can include various regions, countries, language use, and so on and so forth. Sociolinguistics also examines various social classes. This can be your relative socioeconomic status, your relative education status, your ethnicity, gender, where you live in a certain city, how old you are. And sociolinguistics is an entire field. It spans languages, countries, huge groups of people, and it also can look at very small groups of people, like the William Labov study from the 60s. It can involve a lot of complicated things, like looking at phonemes, lexemes, age variation. It takes a lot of time to do interviews. I am looking specifically at how writers can use sociolinguistics. In this case, I will be focusing primarily on character variation, but you can also use it for time period, setting, and so much more. Characters are usually described by physical description: tall, short, big, small, heart-shaped face, oval-shaped face, strong features, glasses, so on and so forth. There are many different variations, but characters can also be described based on the language they use. This is something that's a bit more subtle and requires a lot more consistency and a lot more research. But what it does is it fleshes out a character and makes them really almost real. For example, you can have someone who uses the variation of you or you guys as yous or yins or y'all. These three different variations will tell you where a person's from, where they grew up, and their various backgrounds. So yous guys would perhaps be something from New York, New Jersey, Boston, whereas yins might be more of a Midwestern or Northern Midwest production. Y'all, of course, is from the South, but not every Southern state uses y'all consistently. So these are all different variations that you could have that could flesh out a character and make them more of a real person rather than just some words on a page. You can also use sociolinguistic and language production to portray ethnicity and social class, and this can create some great tension with your characters. Let's say you've got a romance between an upper to upper middle class white guy or white collar guy with a blue collar girl. Okay, so these two characters, they would speak differently, more than just their gender differences, because guys and girls and every gender spectrum in between uses language differently. You may have to do some research on language use, but if you say live in a city and you notice these differences, or you go out and you sit in a cafe and you hear these differences, jot them down and you can put them in your book, and it makes people feel so much more alive, or at least I notice these things, so it does to me. There are loads of resources out there for finding these various character differences. If you're looking for more of an academic research piece, go to Google Scholar. There are loads of papers out there that will tell you this social group uses these words, these phonemes, these variants, versus this social group, which uses a different one. There's been a lot of research on gender differences, if that's something that really interests you, and you can certainly find a lot of these variations just in everyday life. Go research YouTube videos. See how a Londoner speaks differently from someone from Edinburgh or Aberdeen, or say go look at someone who's in California and see how they speak differently from someone who's based in New York. There are lots of different ways that you can get a character to produce something that's just different enough to give them a basis in life, a bit more background, a bit more of a spark. You can also use sociolinguistics to look at language perceptions. That is a whole nother area of research within sociolinguistics, is how people perceive language. Within linguistics, there are two different ways to talk about language. There's the prescriptive version and there's the descriptive version. Prescriptivism is when you go to your English teacher in school and they tell you that you have to write a sentence that does not end in a preposition, even though people do it all the time. Where are you going to? Where are you coming from? Who are you talking to? Those ends with prepositions. Another example of prescriptivism is someone who says that this production of a word is the better production of a word. This can include perceptions that the Queen's English in the UK is a much better way of speaking than, say, Cockney English, or in the US that the Central Ohio River Valley is the standard American English, the best accent in the US. There have actually been studies that show that the Central Ohio River Valley area, sort of Cleveland to Cincinnati up through southern Michigan, that whole area, is perceived as standard American English. In the early 1900s, when people were first doing radio and hearing people's voices, they had to find someone who spoke well enough that everyone could understand. This happened all over the world. So in the UK, there was a lot of work to get received pronunciation as the standard British English variety. That was seen as the best, the easiest to understand, and it didn't give away various regional dialects. Whereas in the States, the standard American English variety was picked from that Central Ohio River Valley. So it grew from there and it became standard. That was the standard because of radio. Descriptivism is saying that no language variant is better or worse than another language variant. It's all right if you use slang. It's all right if you end your sentences with a preposition. None of the regional dialects are better or worse than other regional dialects. They're just different. Everything that you say is just different from how someone else might say it. So this is the standard view taken with linguists. However, most non-linguists have perceptions about this accent is prettier than this other accent, or these people speak better. These people are therefore better. And this often falls along those same sociolinguistic lines that you're looking at. Age, gender, social class, all of those have different perceptions of how educated a person is, how wealthy they are, how correctly they speak, and whether or not they are better than another person. Now, I'm not saying that you should say a language variety is better than another, but you can use those perceptions to create a fleshed out character and to create some of these prejudices that exist and maybe challenge those prejudices. Let's take that same romance between the blue collar girl and the white collar guy. Okay, so we'll pretty up the blue collar girl. We'll call her Rose. We'll pretty her up. We'll take her to a party. She looks exactly like everybody else at this party. However, the way that Rose speaks is going to be different from everybody else at this party. And maybe the guy's mom notices this and says, hey, wait a second, she doesn't fit in here. Even though she looks the part, she can hold a conversation intelligently, this girl doesn't quite fit in. And then maybe the guy has to go and explain to his mom that no, she actually does. She's a perfectly capable person, even though she sounds like she's from the other side of the tracks. Another way that you can challenge language perception is to put these language differences in stories about, say, LGBTQ people, saying, okay, this trans girl speaks differently than other girls. Why? Why do people notice these things, and why do they care? Or maybe discussing multiple racial backgrounds. Why do these people speak differently than other people? Does it matter? Should we pay attention to these things? Sociolinguistics gives you an opportunity to say, okay, here's my character, here's their background. They speak differently than this other character with a different background, and that's okay. And you can use that to flesh out your characters, to add some interesting plot points, and to, make it more realistic. If you're interested in sociolinguistic research, there is a ton out there, again, on Google Scholar, or there are a lot of articles in popular media that talk about language differences. Now, those you have to take with a grain of salt, but they're really good for looking at, okay, this group speaks differently than that group, and here's why. Now, you may not need all of the technical information, such as the frequency of word production is 3.7 seconds with however many words per second, or the phoneme variation follows this graph. That's not necessary. What you need is the general idea, enough to explain your characters and to give them something that's a bit more relatable. Sociolinguistics, like a lot of the different fields of linguistics, gives you an opportunity to explore how words work together to produce something that is not only understandable but meaningful. So if you have any questions, let me know. If you want to know more about a specific group, I would be happy to talk more about that. Linguistics is a science. It's all about tearing language into pieces and putting it back together. The trick is applying that science. I think that everyone can apply a bit of linguistics, a bit of language analysis to their own work and make something fantastic out of it. But of course, I'm a bit of a nerd about these things. I get really excited about language differences, and if I hear something in a cafe where someone says a slang word I have never heard before, oh, be still my beating heart. So that's all I've got for you guys today. If you have any questions, let me know, and feel free to go and follow me around on any of the social media sites. And I'll see you next time. Bye.